Hello, and welcome to the Cleveland International Film Festival Film Slam Streams post-film conversation for the 6th of June. My name is Eric Siler, Professor of Film, Communication, and Media Arts, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased and thrilled to be joined by the director of the 6th of June, Henry Roosevelt. Hello, Henry. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Well, it's such a pleasure to really see this bit of history and that you capture this film. Can you tell us what inspired you to really make this film? Are you like a historian or war enthusiast?
More so guilt, I would say, which is not knowing our history as much as I should be, not knowing important dates on our history, like 6th of June. My grandfather passed away several months prior to making this. And I felt like on his deathbed, he was in that final hour trying to get out all of his experiences serving this country. And, you know, there was guilt for me for maybe glazing over it and not really listening intently before. And, then it became a responsibility going over to Normandy for the first time, seeing the reverence these French people have for the American soldiers, for their liberators. It was extraordinary. So it became guilt and an obligation to kind of do my part in passing along this knowledge and this history.
I certainly understand it's a really well done piece in a condensed manner. There have been other films about the 6th of June, such as Saving Private Ryan, DDay, Overload, and so forth. What sets your documentary apart from some of the other works that have been done about DDay?
We can't compete. We can't compete with Saving Private Ryan or Ken Burns. We couldn't. Those films are so well done, and they provide that quantitative perspective with something like Ken Burns, and that not glorification, but that the scope of that day with Saving Private Ryan. So when developing like a persuasive argument, you think about what is missing in the conversation, and for us, it was pathos. It was the personal connection and those personal stories, and really providing a heartbeat to the legacy and keeping that legacy alive as these voices started to dwindle. So there was a little small gap. We knew in 15 minutes we could not really ever compete with Saving Private Ryan or Ken Burns, but we thought maybe if we sparked the audience to ask bigger questions and go and seek out those films and rewatch them, that we would be inciting a more fulsome conversation, never really answering all of those questions.
Exactly. It's a really condensed way to introduce students to actually delve more into the history. Let's talk a little bit about some of the aspects of the film. You were able to get a couple of, I guess, some prominent people in the film, such as Helen Patton, and to participate in the film. How did you get that to work? And also get Susan Eisenhower. How did you get these people to cooperate with you?
Well, I have a pretentious last name. And when I was first brought over to Normandy as a distant relative, to Teddy and FDR, I was able to meet Susan and Helen, and Normandy for them, they've been going for decades, and they've been really carrying the torch in an incredible way. And so just having dinner with them and listening to their stories over the years of how the ceremonies have changed, and how to keep the sort of fire burning when these veterans are gone. They had extraordinary perspective. So it was a personal phone call And I'm so happy that they acquiesced and provided their voices for this film.
Yeah, I'm glad too. And you said that you are a distant relative of Teddy Roosevelt. How distant
Yes,
are you?
it's distant. My father always said, make sure you focus on your first name, not your last. So it's like a great grandfather. It was the uncle of Teddy on the father's side or something like that. So yeah.
Okay, great, great. In the film itself, you had some really powerful images. One image that stood out was the image at the cemetery, in which you had this continuous shot, and you were pulling out, and you were almost as if we were backing out of the cemetery. And okay, just for those film students out there, can you talk a little bit about that shot, how you got it? Obviously, you didn't lay down tracks. I don't know if you used a steady cam and the meaning behind that shot.
Well, it started off, you know, I thought about what was effective. And for me, Call of Duty and Saving Private Ryan has sort of desensitized us, I feel, to the explosions and to the visceral feeling of what war was. So what was the most powerful were the words of these men. And if you just focused on the words of people describing the day, I felt like there was power in that. So initially it was a blank screen and it was just the words. And then I was like, well, this isn't enough. And, I've worked with Ross Kaufman, who won an Oscar for Born into Brothels, and he's an executive producer on this film. And he taught me this. He said, it's, in a shot, you should reveal information. So start up close and pull out. And I'll never forget that. So I thought, well, okay, so if we use that technique, how do we show the scope of this day? How do we show the scope of D-Day? And so it was pulling out, it was focusing on a singular gravestone and pulling out over 2.5 minutes. And so how we accomplished it is the cinematographer, Patrick Kennedy, and I were on either sides of a Ronin stabilizer, gimbal stabilizer, and we just walked back. And I think I don't even think they knew we were there too, because we got locked in the cemetery and had to like bang on the gates to get out. Because we were just waiting for that sort of perfect light, that ominous sort of bluish hue to do it. But yeah, technically it was the Ronin, and we shot on a red Monstro, and I think it was like Sigma lenses or something like that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well done, especially hearing you got locked in a cemetery. I guess it was just no, and I mean that in a good way. That I guess the soldiers that had passed on were like glad that you were trying to tell their story. Didn't want you to go. I guess in that sense.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they were like one more take.
Absolutely. Another scene that was really powerful in the film was there was a military leader giving a tour to the young soldiers and he was telling them about the history. What particular branch of military was that, and what country was that from, and who was that military leader?
So there's Colonel Keith Nightingale, and he was leading predominantly, I think it was the 82nd Airborne, which was obviously instrumental in D-Day in tours. And so he is a plethora of information, and he's heard it from the horse's mouth. So that's sort of, I mean, he's walked with General Gavin, he's walked with all of these leaders, and he's literally, verbatim, just, espousing what those who actually were there told him decades prior before they passed. And honestly, if you ever can get a tour with Keith Nightingale, it's worth your money. It's worth its salt. It's invaluable, because and him alone, how he served, like he's seen some extraordinary things. Just in his service alone. But now it's his mission to pass on you know, the voices who have faded, and he's really taken on, especially, you know, giving that information to those that currently serve. So they know that it, you know, in quote unquote, whatever hellhole they are in the world, you know, that, you know, their forefathers and the people that have gone before, you know, have, you know, paved a way. So their service means something.
That is good to know. Good to know. I felt as if I was being given a tour myself when he was speaking. We're a little more than halfway through our program, audience, and I want to encourage you to please submit your questions in the portal. And we have one question, Henry, that's come in. Someone wants to know how many people actually come to the celebration every year, or is it year round?
Year round, hundreds of thousands come to this small town, hundreds of thousands. I mean, it is the St. Mariglis's bread and butter. You know, they really actually, that's what keeps that town alive. And their biggest fear is that when these veterans are gone, you know, can they keep people coming? So they have these incredible museums that, you know, keep people coming and try to keep the history alive, like the Airborne Museum. Yeah, it's on the day. I can't count on 2 hands, 20 hands. It's you know, I think what did it say in the film? I don't know. I forget what it said exactly, but it's hundreds of thousands annually come.
Right, exactly. They do, and I thought it was especially moving to see how American flags are displayed over there on as well too. Another
It's
question.
just to speak to that very quickly, it's not just American flags. It's from, you know, all the countries, but there is definitely more American flags over there than anywhere else. But it is a place for everyone to congregate, where politics and country don't matter, where you can share a beer with, you know, a German, where you can, somebody who's English, Belgian, you know, it's pretty extraordinary. You know, I would impress upon anyone who has the opportunity to go during the D-Day celebrations, just to see the brotherhood, you know, that transcends brotherhood and sisterhood that transcends country lines.
I can imagine it's very powerful. And how many times have you been over there for D-Day?
Three. And every time it's always the small events and those small moments that really get you, like sharing Calvados in a farm field where they're plucking out, you know, 50 cal bullets and giving it to you and crying and saying, you know, mon cœur, my heart, you know, and you can't speak the language that well all the time, but you know what they're feeling. And it's insane to me, you know, they sit there and they treat you like a hero. And I was like, please, what are you doing? Just because I'm an American? Like, and it's like, no. Oh, wow. Somebody's screaming.
Sorry about that.
No worries. But yeah, it's an incredible feeling to not even speak the same language and still connect with another.
It's exactly to be unified in that manner. Another question we have in a few minutes we have left is, when did you first learn about D-Day?
I mean, I saw Saving Private Ryan when I was a kid, probably earlier than I should have. You know, I've watched, you know, all the docs out there, you know. So I've known about it, but at the breadth that I should have, probably not as much, specifically in high school and college. So, you know, I can cast stones and say, oh, you don't know who George Marshall is, or, you know, General Patton, you know, but did I know enough? Probably not. And so that's why I felt like this message was even more important to get out.
Absolutely. I'm going to combine the next two questions. How long did it take to make this film, and while making this film, who's the coolest person you met?
Oh man, How long did it take to make this film? 2 years, longer than it should have. 2 years on a 15-minute film is insane. It's not financially responsible, and I'm sure the producers had a heart attack every single month, but it was worth it. We were very meticulous with each shot. I mean, we have a plethora of interviews that we really want to get out there. Very interesting perspectives. I would say Keith Nightingale is probably the coolest, Colonel Keith Nightingale. I'd say there's so many other interesting voices that really should be heard. For example, we interviewed a gentleman, Peter Swarslows, who was in the German army. And his mother was American, his father was German. And I asked him right out of the gates, I was like, well, how'd you join the Nazi party? And he said, see, that's the problem with Americans. You think every German was a Nazi. The Nazi was the ruling party at the time. You know, do you abide by the words of your leaders, Democrats or Republicans? You know, the difference is I would have been shot and killed if I stood up to mine. And his perspective, I mean, he spent 5 years in a Siberian prison camp, and, you know, he split his time between America and Germany. But then, you know, when he turned 16, you know, the war had started and he was in Germany at the time. It was a really interesting interview. I think he has a book out there called Gulag, American in the German army. It's just interesting when you look at the world with a little nuance, you know, and when you try to see people on a human level, you know, but again, absolutely condemn all acts by the Nazi party. But, you know, there are people that got caught in the fold. There are people who just were born in a different country. That was a very interesting perspective, and one of those interviews that stuck with me.
Wow, that is really powerful, really good information to share, because those are things you don't always read in the history books.
No.
So I'm glad you were able to share that with us. Another question we have coming is, did you ever serve in the military?
No, and that is my biggest guilt. I think that's why I made this. Because of that guilt. My father served, he was in the army, you know, my grandfather served, and that stuck with me. And there has been guilt. So what can I do? You know, I'm an artist. How can you use that sort of power to serve this country? And I felt like, well, if I can, you know, focus a message on this period in history, then I guess that's the best I can do at this point. But yeah, I didn't serve. I have tremendous respect for all those who serve, you know.
Okay, just to follow up on that question, is there a reason why you did not serve, if you don't mind sharing?
I don't know. I went to college post 9/11. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Maybe solipsism and just self-absorption and not really thinking, you know, not to make this a partisan issue, but yeah, I don't know. I was like any high schooler who thought maybe the coolest thing to do is I was like a rower. So I went to college and rowed, and that was my world. But, you know, once you get out of college, I think my eyes opened to bigger issues. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. I feel guilt right now, so I'm just trying to serve in the only way I know. So
I see. Oh, so tell us what's next for you. Hopefully it's not something out of guilt, but maybe it could be something out of guilt. Well, what's your next project that you have coming up?
I can't talk about it. It's going to be on something big that you will hear about on a platform or something. I can't talk about it. So strict code of silence probably for the next 8 months. I'm not really a big social person, but if you follow me, I don't even think I'm on Facebook anymore after watching Social Dilemma, but if you follow me, Henry Roosevelt, like Native Boy Films, I'm sure I'll post something in a few months' time. But it's not light fare. I tend to gravitate towards darkness, which is causing some severe PTSD. Hopefully I'll get out of that. I will say, I can say that one of the projects I'm actually most excited about is and I'm helping to develop is my buddy Eric Edstrom's book Un-American, which is a really nuanced approach to the longest war in Afghanistan. I tend to gravitate towards masculine issues and, again, inequities in myself where I feel like I have to fill the gap. So I'm really excited. We've been working on that for quite some time. So.
Well, great. We can't wait to see. You have all of us very curious. So I'm sure you're going to pick up some more followers after this conversation.
That was not the aim. That was not the aim. So.
We know that, but it's just really good and it's exciting. If it's anything like the 6th of June, I'm sure we're all in for a treat. Well, Henry, it's such a pleasure having you with us today, and we really appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best with your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it. And this is all for the veterans. So find those stories, seek out your grandparents, and keep their memories and their stories alive. That's what's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Well said. And we'd like to thank you, our audience, for joining us. Please continue to look for more information about the upcoming 45th Cleveland International Film Festival by following us on social media at clevelandfilm.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Eric Siler.